to Beyond the Pulpit. My name is Derek Wadley, and I'm joined here by Luke Cookie. Say hi, Luke.
Hey, everybody.
Dan Rude. Say hi, Dan.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Oh, he's hitting us with the Merry Christmas. Oh, man, it kind of took the lead there. This is our Christmas episode here. And so we were just talking about our community group Christmas parties and everything, and how we've eaten more in the last few days than we probably have the rest of the year.
Yeah, is gluttony a sin at Christmas? Is that like a thing?
I'm pretty sure that between Thanksgiving and Christmas, it's permissible.
But not beneficial.
But not beneficial. All things are permissible. But,
darn it.
Yeah, so, Christmas is coming, and we thought it would be good to sit down and talk a little bit about Christmas. And specifically, I want to ask you guys, what is the central claim of Christmas? Why do Christians care so much about Christmas?
Yeah, the central claim of Christmas is that the eternal God of the universe, the one who's before all time, who created everything, became a man. That God became a man in the person of Jesus Christ. And that claim is incredible, just to think about God, who is changeless, like he's immutable. He's not changing like we are changing. He's known all things forever. He's never learned anything. He's all powerful. But he became a man in the person of Jesus Christ, that God became just like us. And I was thinking a little bit this week about Genesis chapter 3, about how Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 starts off, it's very optimistic. It's pretty exciting. You have this new creation, the creation of the universe, and it's filled with potential, filled with opportunities. And then God creates Adam and Eve in his image. And then shortly after that, as we all know, Adam and Eve fell into sin. They ate from the tree that they were not permitted to eat from. And because of that, the whole world fell into sin. All of creation fell. Human beings fell. And now death, in a very real way, death would reign over the earth. And as God is holding Adam and Eve and the devil to account, we get these incredible verses in Genesis 3. Verse 15 says, God says to Eve, to the devil, to the serpent, I will put hostility between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will strike your head, and you will strike his heel. And so what we see in this verse is the hostility between the woman and the devil. And then there's the promise that the head of the serpent will be crushed by the offspring of the woman. And so God promises all the way back in Genesis that there's coming a child who will be born, who will destroy or crush the head of the serpent. He will be injured. He will be struck. But the head of the serpent will be crushed. And I think if I was Eve and I would have heard that, thinking, I'm going to have a child. One of my descendants, I'm going to have a child. And that child is going to crush the head of the serpent. When Eve got pregnant, I bet she was wondering, is this the child? Is this the child that God promised that would crush the head of the serpent? And, Adam and Eve, right after they sinned, they knew that they were naked. They clothed themselves. There's now... there's no longer peace between Adam and Eve. There's hostility. Their relationship is broken. Their relationship with God and themselves and each other in creation is broken. And so when we get to Genesis chapter 4, we see that Eve has a son. Genesis 4:1 says, the man was intimate with his wife, Eve, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain. She said, I have had a male child with the Lord's help. Now, I'm injecting this a little bit, but I just wonder if Eve maybe thought, is this the child? Is this the one?
Yeah. There certainly had to be an anticipation, like, maybe.
Maybe this child. And when a child is born, they're just filled with potential. What will this child become? Eve doesn't know that Cain is going to become Cain.
Right.
And pretty quickly we realize Cain is not the child.
He crushes his brother.
He crushes his brother's head.
That's
He
right.
crushed the head of the serpent. He crushes his brother's head. And so for thousands of years, humanity would have to wait for that child.
And wonder.
And wonder,
Yeah.
when
is
will
this
the
going to
child,
happen?
Come?
Yeah.
And God is not mindlessly letting history unfold, but rather he's directing all of history. He chooses Abraham out of all the people on the earth. And then he chooses Isaac and Jacob, and then the 12 sons of Jacob, the Israelites. And then he says the Messiah will come through the line of Judah, and then from Jesse, and then he will be a son of David. And then when we pick up Luke chapter 1, we see that there's this family who are descendants of David.
Yes.
It is incredible.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah.
In Nazareth,
It's really wild.
in the town of Nazareth.
Now, when you were at church talking about just like the Nazarites being like hillbillies and all of that, I went to Appalachia a few years ago, and I mean, you get into the hills of like the Appalachian Mountains and West Virginia, like all of that. This is not to say everyone from West Virginia is that way, but there is something.
Be careful, Derek.
Be
careful here.
There's just something to like just that imagery when you think about just like even just like the stereotypes that come out of like regions like that, just in the States, and just seeing what like that area was even like, I'm just like, oh man, like just how poor their reputation would have been, despite the fact that they're descendants of David. You know?
No, at least some of them were in Nazareth, and you know, in John chapter 7 verse 52, I was thinking about that verse as I was preparing this week, and the Pharisees say to Nicodemus, "You aren't a Galilean too, are you? Investigate and see that no prophet will come from Galilee." The irony of that statement is incredible, because that captures the attitude of the Pharisees and the Judeans towards the Galileans. But remember, Jesus was a Galilean, and 11 of the 12 apostles were Galileans. And the only apostle who was not a Galilean, who was it? Judas. Judas was not. So not only will the Messiah be a Galilean, but the apostles will be. 11 of the 12 apostles will be Galileans. And they were known for their accent. Remember, that's how Peter
found out.
They said, "We know you are with that man. Your accent gives you away." And so they had a distinct accent, and not like a British distinct accent, more like a Mississippi accent, down south Mississippi.
Yeah,
It's incredible.
Yep. I remember we were in New Orleans a few years ago. There's just a handful of people with that thick old Creole accent. I'm like, I know that noise came out of you, but I don't know if it was words.
Yeah, I know. So then we meet Mary. We meet Mary in Luke chapter 1, Matthew chapter 1, or is it chapter 2, Matthew 2? 1 or 2. Yeah, Matthew 2. And so we meet Mary, the poor teenage girl from Nazareth, that she finds out from Gabriel that she will be the mother of the Son of God. Now, there seems to be, throughout church history, 2 errors that people have made about Mary. What are those errors? The 2 common errors people have made when thinking about Mary.
One, I think the one that jumps out to everyone, obviously, is the deification of Mary.
To deify
our
Mary.
Mother Mary, full of grace.
Yeah, Hail Mary, full of grace.
Yeah,
and, that's right.
Yeah, I don't mean to like trigger you or anything, Luke, by bringing up old Catholic things. I don't know them well enough either. But yeah, just like over deifying her, like the idea that we pray to her that she has somehow some high position by virtue of being the mother of Jesus, some heavenly position, almost like a throne.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
the queen. Yeah, she's the queen over all things. And it's very common to see Mary lifted up so high that people pray to her. Yeah. You know, she's lifted up so high that you can't distinguish between Mary and God, or Mary and the Son of God. And so people pray to her. They create shrines and they pray to her. or they beg her to intercede for her or for them instead of Christ. And that's one area.
But even the way she's represented in a lot of art.
Oh, Lord.
I mean, we looked at the Annunciation at church, but that's just like one of thousands and thousands of depictions of Mary. And you go into churches, even like Protestant churches that have like old stained glass and all of that. There's a lot of like
Mary worship.
Yeah,
and I think Protestants, because of that, we have run the other way. And maybe at times we've gone too far. So the first error is to deify Mary. The second error is not as serious of an error, but it's still an error. And that is to dismiss her or diminish Mary. To say Mary, there's nothing special or unique about Mary in any way. That's not what Luke says.
No.
Luke says.
In fact, Luke gives us a picture of her that is distinctly different from just about everybody else that an angel had ever appeared to and given a message from the Lord.
That's exactly right. So that's exactly right.
Yep.
And we should call her blessed. She's blessed among all the women who have ever lived. Billions of women have lived, and one was the mother of the Son of God. I mean, what a incredible privilege.
Yeah.
Incredible. So we don't want to deify her, and we also do not want to dismiss her. So how do we think about her? What's the right way to think about Mary?
Yeah, I think one way to think about her is that the right way to think about her is that she is a person made in the image of God who is being used by God to accomplish his purposes. And so I don't think she is more significant than another person per se in like her value or worth, I guess. But God has obviously chosen to use her, and she's not sinless, but rather she is a human being like the rest of us who are sinful and who have disobeyed God and who have rebelled against God. Yet God has redeemed her and has used her to accomplish, one of the greatest feats in the world, to bring about the Son of God, to bring God becoming man. So that's a pretty remarkable situation. So I think Mary obviously is in a unique spot, being young, 13, 14, whatever the age is exactly, betrothed, but yet not married, clearly virgin. And now she is being greeted by the angel Gabriel, and she's being kind of put in this position, or given this blessing and responsibility to be the Son of God, or to be the mother of the Son of God. Yeah. And so I don't think we don't want to exalt Mary into a place of sinlessness, which is what the Catholics in particular do. But I think, like you said, we don't want to diminish her to the point where she has no value.
Yeah, and I think she knew. That Jesus was the Christ. I think from the Annunciation, and you think about her life and all that went along with her life, and it says in the Gospel of Luke that Mary, repeatedly it says Mary treasured these things in her heart. And so she was taking them very seriously. She's like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. I was thinking a little bit just about how Jesus, in the Gospel of John, how Jesus begins his ministry, or his first miracle, the wedding in Cana. And I just think it's just a funny little detail that the wedding wine runs out, and Mary's the one who just says, "Hey Jesus, we got a problem here. Do your thing." And I think that indicates that she knew. I'm not saying that Jesus was constantly like showing miraculous works, maybe, but I don't think so. But I think that she knew that he could.
Well, yeah, and even his response is like the way he answers her. It's like he's like, "I know you know, but but not now,
not now, Mom,
Mom,
not now." And then she goes, "Hey guys, do whatever he says." So I just think it's such an interesting story. But she knew who Jesus was before anybody else.
Yeah,
and she believed that he was the Christ. And so maybe just a couple details on Mary. What's very clear in the Gospel of Luke and in Matthew is that Mary was a virgin. That Mary was a virgin. Now, she was not, contrary to what some say, she was not a perpetual virgin. Some people, they teach the perpetual virginity of Mary. but she was not a perpetual virgin. How do we know that?
The scriptures. Jesus, your mother and brothers and sisters are outside.
Mary and Joseph had other children, like not one, but like a lot of children.
Right.
I think there's 7 that are listed. There's a lot of children there.
At least one contributed a book to the Bible.
Yeah, I know. I know. That's right. And it says in Matthew chapter 1, verse 25, it says, when Joseph woke up, he did as the angel had commanded him. He married her, but he did not have sexual relations with her until, that's a key word, he didn't have sexual relations with her until she gave birth to a son, and he named him Jesus. So like, Matthew's pretty clear.
Yeah.
They were a normal married couple. So we shouldn't think of the virginity of Mary as a perpetual virginity, but she had other children. Now, Derek, why does the virgin birth matter, or does it matter, or virgin conception? I should say
virgin. Yeah, because I don't think the birth is not really what we're concerned with.
Right.
He was born the same as the rest of us,
Yes.
but it's what it was. Jesus conceived by a virgin.
Yeah.
One reason I think it's important is that it is the fulfillment of the prophecy in Isaiah 7, where Isaiah is told the virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and we will call him Emmanuel. So we want to take the scripture seriously. We want to see that that Jesus was born, that the Messiah was born the way that God had intended and said.
Yep.
That. So we trust the scriptures on that. So that's one reason.
Yep. Scriptural integrity. Yeah.
Yep.
That's exactly right. Okay. Why else? Why else does the virgin conception matter?
I think in some ways, it means that Jesus is not like us, and that he doesn't have a sin nature.
Yes.
If he was,
what do you mean by that? What does that mean?
I think that if he was conceived by Joseph and Mary and chosen by God after that, then he would be a Messiah with a sin nature. And so he would be like us in ways that are not helpful.
Why?
Because if he was like us and sinful, then his death would be just like our death on behalf of it. It's like an insufficiency. It's no different than like
he has no ability to atone for sin because he has sin that he has to be.
He's got
to deal with his own stuff.
Yeah, and so it seems like the throughout church history, I think many have affirmed this. Some disagree with this, or people remain agnostic about this. But it's the idea that the sin nature is passed down through the Father. So if you have a human father, then you're under the curse of Adam.
Yeah. So Merry Christmas, dads.
Merry Christmas, dads.
It's your fault. Your kids are the way they are.
You made your children sinful. Yeah. So if Jesus did not have a human father, then he was not under the curse of Adam. He's actually the new Adam. He's the new Adam. Okay. So why else does the virgin conception matter?
Well, I think that would be the primary reason that it would matter. Because if Jesus is born of a man, then he is born of the seed of Adam, which is the sin nature. And so I don't know if there's other reasons. Maybe there are, but that would be the most significant in my mind. Aside from the fact that if you, Matthew 1, I mean, Jesus, or Matthew rather, he attributes the birth of Jesus to the fulfillment of the prophecy of Isaiah. So, or Matthew, is it 1? I think it's Matthew.
Yeah, Matthew 1. Yeah.
So I think those would be two substantial reasons. Yeah. And I guess maybe subsequent to that is that, or along with that, is that if Jesus, I mean, he had to be a human to die and pay for our sins. So Hebrews is pretty clear that Jesus is made just like us, or he is just like us, but without sin. Therefore, he is able to be the atonement, or to be the propitiation, the substitutionary sacrifice for the sin of humanity. And so he needs to be human, but he also needs to be sinless. And so the virgin birth or conception provides both of those, I think would be.
Because if Jesus just showed up as a 30-year-old man, he just appeared from heaven, he could be human. People talk about how Adam, he was created as an adult, and he was genuinely human. So in theory, God he could have made the Son of God just appear.
It's true.
Or formed him from the dirt, or breathed into him. Like,
exactly. He could have done that, and he would have been, and he would not have. They could have skipped the sinless nature. He would not have been under the curse of Adam. But then, in a very real sense, he wouldn't be like us in the same way.
Yeah, because he didn't go through. I mean, Hebrews is pretty clear that Jesus went through every trial and temptation that we did without. It had weaknesses. He got tired. He got hungry. He got sad. And so by going through all of this, he was able to like actually identify with us and accurately represent us as an atoning sacrifice.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Hebrews 4:15 for. We don't have a high priest who's unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who has been tempted in every way as we are, yet without sin. So I don't know though. Couldn't you have that even if you weren't born as through the same means as everybody else?
Oh,
you think?
You mean like
if he just appeared?
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't think that he probably could have been formed out of the earth the same way Adam was, because the earth, the ground is cursed.
That's true.
So we're not going to make a savior out of a cursed earth. But it'd be more like an ex nihilo type of thing. God just speaks Jesus into existence. But it seems that like Jesus's full identification with not just having like flesh and bone, like that's not what makes his sacrifice meaningful. Like if it was just purely his having flesh and bone, it was the fact that he did go through all of life. He lived the life that we ought to live and was
even as a child.
Seems like the word sympathize is the key.
I was thinking about that a little bit. I think about like, what must it be like to have a child that when you're like, hey, come sit down, they come and sit down, or like, hey, don't like, let's not go there.
Don't throw rocks.
Don't throw rocks at your brother. You don't even have to say that. But then, like, how often did Jesus' siblings hear like, can't you be more like your brother?
Just
I'm sure there's a little consternation there with siblings.
And I think another reason and I know this territory I think is pretty clear, but I know there's maybe some disagreement about this theologically, but I think it's relatively clear. Like, he really is a descendant of David.
That's another big factor.
He actually he can trace his ancestors back. To all the way back to David, all the way back to Abraham, all the way back to Adam. And that's what the genealogy is doing. Kent Hughes, the commentator, Hughes just makes the comment that in the face of Jesus, you probably would have seen Mary. There had been a physical resemblance there. Like he really is a descendant of Mary, and that's a big deal. And I know that people are, I know there is a little bit of debate about that. So I'm not going to bet my life on that type of thinking. But I think the whole point of, not the whole point, but one of the big points in the Old Testament is that God is establishing a line through whom his son would come. And so it just seems like it would be a weird thing for, he's establishing the line through whom his son would come, and then all of a sudden he just like appears out of nowhere.
And you couldn't trace it back.
You couldn't trace it back. And he had royal blood. I mean, that's the idea. That
Kings would come from you is what it says to Abraham.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And Mary's lineage is like you can trace back to David through Mary, like without Joseph. But like Luke's genealogy seems to be the one that is tracing back through Mary's line to David. Now Matthew deals with it slightly differently, but it still gets back there. But I mean, Luke labors through the genealogy. And
they would have checked Jesus like from the beginning. Are you really a descendant from David? That's a really big point.
Right. That's not a claim
rightful king
that comes up. In hardly, like, people argue against the deity of Christ, the virgin birth, whether or not he really died, really existed, all of that stuff. But when you could at least concede the point that Jesus was a real person.
That's right.
It never comes up that oh, you can't trace his lineage back the right way. Like,
Yep.
and so like that, and the Jews were meticulous about their genealogy, keeping the records. And whether you were from David's line or Cain's line or whatever, like they were meticulous and just knowing who's who.
And which would make sense too if you're anticipating the Messiah. Mm-hmm. You know that the Messiah can only come from the line of David, the tribe of Judah. So yeah, you'd have to keep tight records of what's who's born where.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he wasn't correct me, but I don't think he wasn't the first to claim the Messiah, right? No, so you have all these people who are claiming or false messiahs.
Well, even a lot of like the Near Eastern like false religions that came out, it was like a lot of them are. This is like a Josh McDowell fact, I think, but a lot of them come out of like Babylon, around about the time the Jews were in exile and started to spread out. A lot of like these kind of repeat like versions of a virgin birth, like all of this stuff, like you can trace it back to around about the exile. And so
that's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And something else that I was thinking about with just the story of the birth of Christ and how when it comes to Mary and what Mary knew, just even what the angel Gabriel says is that you're going to have a son, and you will name him Jesus. And that idea that the name Jesus, it means that God or Jehovah saves, and that Jesus would be the Savior of the world. And this is why Christmas is such good news. It's why Christmas is worth celebrating. And I think our culture's gone through a variety of phases, at least the kind of the Christian culture, where some people say Christmas presents and Christmas trees and all these
pagan.
Yeah, it's all pagan, and you just shouldn't even think about it, or it's a distraction from Christmas. And I don't know, maybe that's true, but
Starbucks goes to all red cups.
That's right. That's
we just lose our minds collectively.
That's right. But so I don't know if this is right, but I don't care. I think this is right. It's good to celebrate Christmas, and it's good to make a big deal, I think, with your kids and to teach your kids Christmas is worth celebrating. Like it's worth celebrating. I like Christmas trees. I have multiple Christmas trees up in my house. They've been up since July. I'm just kidding. Christmas in July. Just kidding.
There you go.
But I think it's a good thing, and it's a good opportunity just to teach our kids and remind each other of why we're celebrating, to consider and to celebrate the coming of Christ, that Jesus came into the world that we might have eternal life.
And as a church, we're going to celebrate together. We're going to celebrate Christmas together. We started our Christmas series. Well, today's Monday. Yesterday is what I'm going to say. But the 15th, and then we have December 22nd. We'll have our normal services, but then on Christmas Eve, which is a Tuesday this year, December 24th. We will have Christmas Eve services at 3:30 and 5 p.m. So we would encourage you all just to invite your friends, your family, your neighbors, come and celebrate the birth of Christ at church. We're going to sing some great Christmas carols. We're going to look at what the Word of God has to say about the birth of Christ. So that would be a great thing to invite your friends to, your family to. And so we would invite you all to join us, but bring someone with you.